worst accident, the more the sign was sought after. So the worse the accident, the more the sign was sought after, and thus was worth it. A lot of times you have to be really lucky to find them on the side of the road or be in the right place at the right time. When the pole of a sign is on, it gets taken out by a car. One of the more modern signs I did not have was one that had been had a merging traffic. Okay, one of the more modern signs I did not have was one that had a merging traffic symbol on it. For some reason, this symbol sign would elude me time and time again. I started to think that I may never get one. Then, tragically, one day, when I was getting on the freeway, a car crossed in front of a semi, and with the difference in weight, there was only going to be one outcome. The compact car bounced off the front bumper and flipped 6 or 7 times before coming to rest in the ditch. Parts of the car were strewn all over the road from the deadly rollover. I knew I was going to be late getting to work since I was now stuck where I was. Traffic had come to a halt, and we were not going anywhere anytime soon. A glint of yellow caught my eye in the weeds on the side of the road. I just figured it was a standard speed sign or interstate label, but I figured, what the heck, I'm stuck anyways. I was peppered by insults from people upset that I was getting out of my car on the freeway, but when you have a chance to get a sign, you make your move. As I got closer, I realized it wasn't not what I had originally thought it was. I looked down, and I had to blink a couple of times to make sure I was seeing things correctly. Here it was, the sign I had been searching for, the merging traffic sign. I picked it up, looked carefully at it. Even though the post had been bent in all different directions, the sign was intact. It was a stroke of good luck. I took my wrench out of my back pocket and unscrewed the sign from the bent pole and hefted it back to my car. I sat there for more than an hour before the traffic started to move again, but even that could not dampen my mood. I spent all day thinking of the perfect place would be to put the new addition to my collection. When my workday was finally over and I pulled into my garage, I left the sign in the back seat until I was ready to wash and mount it. I went to my bedroom to change when I heard my car alarm going off. It took me by surprise since I had not locked the doors, so the alarm should not have been activated. My car was pretty new, so I did not think that it could have a short in the system yet. So I figured I better go take a look. I went to the door to the garage, and as soon as I twisted the handle, the alarm went silent. I walked out into the garage with my key fob and locked and unlocked the car, so the alarm would be for sure off. Since I was out there, I grabbed the new sign out of the back seat and carried it into my bedroom. I have the walls adorned with a number of road signs, and I figured that since I had sought out this one for so long, that it would be nice to be able to look at it. The signs require special mountings that I would have to go to the hardware store the next day for before I could do anything with it, so it would stay on the floor for the night. After a quick dinner and a few hours of television, I was ready to go to sleep. I usually get to sleep early, but I could not seem to get comfortable. My entire left side of my body ached. Finally, after an hour of tossing and wheel. I had this overwhelming sense that I had to get to where I was going quickly, or something bad would happen. I would need to push it. I sped down the on-ramp, not even bothering to check for oncoming traffic. I only cared about what was in front of me. The people behind would not catch me. The car quickly gained speed as I neared the merge area, and it looks like I've managed to find an empty spot to turn into. I pressed the gas to the freeway and turn the wheel. Unfortunately, I do not see the shadow blocking the sun until it's too late. The front of my car is clipped by the front of the massive truck, and I lose all control. I see the sky, then pavement, over and over and over again as the car flips time and time again. I feel a terrible pain in my left side, but I'm too disoriented to know why. I hear a crash and crunch noise above me, then everything goes black. I shot up in bed and I winced. The pain on my left side from earlier was far worse than it had been, and my head was killing me. The dream had seemed so vivid and real. The terror I felt when the crash was going on was still with me. I hear footsteps next to the bed, but there is no one there. The sign falls over with a loud metallic crash, and the footsteps walk out the door and down the hall. I sat there, not sure what just happened. I believed ghosts could exist, especially when people died under tragic circumstances. First there had been the alarm, then the pain, the car wreck dream, and then the sign falling over after hearing footsteps walk over to it from the bed. I looked over at the back of the sign that now lay flat on my bedroom floor. The only thing that made sense was that the man had died in the car crash I had seen earlier. He had been drawn to the sign I had brought home. I now believe that this was the case. I think he was telling me that my precious sign came at a price, and even though I did not have any part in it, I profited from his death. I thought about getting rid of it, but I just could not do it. I like to think of it as a memorial to him. I just hope the man found some peace. Grip of sorrow. I have a sister that lost her 5-month-old son to SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome. Unfortunately, not a lot is known about the causes of SIDS. For certain, there have been many theories. Our entire family was devastated by Caleb's passing, and I believe that negative energy is what drew a negative spirit to us and nearly caused the death of my sister's then infant daughter. Kennedy was a beautiful baby. She relit the hope and love that my sister lost when Caleb was taken at far too early of an age. There was a time when I doubted that I would ever see the woman that my sister used to be again. There was nothing that could have been done to prevent what had happened, but she blamed herself for the death. All that changed when she found out that she was pregnant. It was like the purpose of caring for her unborn child gave her direction and hope that had not been there before. Her thinking was that having the same crib that Caleb did would give Kennedy a connection to her brother. The bed was repainted with a pink color instead of the dark blue that it had been before to go with the remodeled nursery. 1 week after she was born, Kennedy came home, and after a quiet month, something went horribly wrong. A normally quiet and heavy baby, Kennedy would sleep most of the night without much fussing. She was a baby most parents would dream of. One night, though, when my sister put her in her crib, she began shrieking at the top of her lungs. She would shake and turn blue like she could not breathe, but as soon as she took her into any other room in the house, she would calm almost immediately and regain her normal coloring. My sister suspected that something was wrong with the crib. She even spent a night sleeping in it, trying to see if whatever was wrong with it would happen to her, but with no success. sister's a very religious woman, and when she turned to her church for help, she was afraid that it would not stop if she just got rid of the crib. So she wanted to make sure the house was safe for her daughter. Some of the church elders came the next day to see what was happening and if they could help. They tried to get Kennedy into the crib peacefully, but even when they placed her inside, she began to shriek and turn the same color blue as always. They prayed around the crib, but her cries seemed to intensify and she seemed to be going from blue to purple. The elders had seen enough to believe some sort of evil entity had attached itself to the bed, and in order to purify it, they had to burn it completely. Even though it was early afternoon and a bright sunny day, I do not even remember being more scared than I was at that time. They brought the crib outside and sprinkled it with oil to bless it, then doused it in another type of oil used to light furnaces. What came next is something that I could not have imagined. The crib would not burn. It was on fire. I could see the red and orange flames licking its surface, and the intense heat coming off of it, but it refused to turn to ash. It took the elders multiple gallons of oil and several hours to completely consume the crib. The priest believed that a demon or evil spirit had attached itself to the item and wanted to torture Kennedy. He believed it was attached to the terrible events surrounding Caleb's death. It saw the happiness my sister had rediscovered in her daughter and wanted to use that love to inflict pain. I believe what the elders thought had happened. I had heard stories of spirits coming into people's homes when they bought them at a garage sale or secondhand stores, but I did not know that it could happen to something that was associated with tragedy. It makes me question what is safe to keep and what I should throw away, because I do not know what or who I might be inviting in. One heck of a ride. If someone had asked me before my experience if I believed in ghosts or spirits of some kind, I probably would have told them, yeah, I guess, or maybe. I was not a skeptic, but never having come into contact with anything of the sort forced it into the realm of the hypothetical. But sometimes hypothetical can come up and smack you right upside the head when you least expect it. That is what happened to me on 3 successive nights, riding home on a bike I just purchased from a second-hand store. I was coming home late from work one evening. I was a person who liked to get his exercise any way that I could. So given that I was not very far, I rode my bike to and from work each day. That night, it seemed particularly dark, so much so that I was having trouble seeing the road, even with the assistance of the light strapped to my handlebars. A new moon did nothing to help the situation, leaving me with only a small glow on the road ahead. I tend to ride pretty quickly, pushing myself to reach fairly high speeds on my bike. So I was a little surprised when I felt a tug on the back of my shirt. I looked over my shoulder and I did not see anyone there. Not only that, but there was not a light or anything to indicate that another rider was near me. At the speed I was going, it was also unlikely that someone would be able to grab me either. And most concerning was that if I could not see anyone, how could they see me? That start gave me the motivation to push a little harder to get home as quickly as I could. I pushed hard down on the pedals to accelerate when the front of the wheel on my bike suddenly stopped. Not like braking stopped, but no motion at all. I felt myself pitch forward and suddenly feeling a sudden feeling of weightlessness. Then over the handlebars I went, followed by a brief slide across the ground. I looked up and I saw a car coming in my direction, and although close to me, I just bought this bike used recently. I knew every moving part on it, so I was not sure what had happened. I gave everything a once over and decided nothing was out of place. So I rode the rest of the way home, although in a slight bit of discomfort. The next day I felt the wreck more than I had when it happened. My elbow was sore where I had hit it, and the scabs where the road had cut me pulled against the skin with every pedal. As my usual routine, I was coming home late down the same road and that I had taken a spill the night before, thinking that if somebody was messing with me the night before, they would do it again near the same place. Fortunately, nothing happened, and I breathed a sigh of relief when I turned onto the road leading to my house. I thought that I was going to make it home without incident when the front tire of my bike halted again. I must have felt something going wrong, or it could have just been dumb luck because I didn't flip over off my bike this time. I looked around the street trying to find my assailant, but the street was empty. I did not even hear the sound of someone running away in the darkness. I was angry at what were a number of options. First, if someone was doing this to me, I could have been seriously hurt twice now. Secondly, at myself, if I had missed something on the bike that was causing some sort of malfunction, then I was to blame. I committed myself to poring over every inch of the bike. When I got home, I remounted the bike. I began pedaling towards my house. I pulled into my driveway and walked up to the keypad next to the garage door and punched in the combination to open the door. I pulled my bike into the garage and put it on the stand where I do all of my maintenance and repairs. I spent the next 3 hours taking apart everything on the bike, applying grease and lubricant and adjusting every cable and lever on it. Nothing stands out with the wheels or the gears that could cause the failure on the road. I had not seen anyone there, though, and I did not find anything wrong with the bike, so I did not understand what was going on, but a thought in the back of my mind was starting to take shape. Something I did not want to accept, let alone consider. Riding home the next night, I am extra cautious. I do not ride nearly as fast, so I do not wreck no matter what happens. My head is on swivel, looking for anyone or anything on the road that would cause my wheel to stop. Things go pretty normally until I get about halfway home. I have to ride down a pretty steep hill and stand up on the pedals to give myself a little natural shock absorption. As soon as my weight was on it, the pedals gave out. My feet dropped to the ground and the bike is sent off balance, flipping over a curb. My chest impacts first and it knocked the wind out of my lungs. My head bounced off the ground and the world went black. I come to pretty quickly, but I am in an immense amount of pain. I just sit there for probably 15 minutes, trying to get the road to stop spinning. I knew I have a concussion and was hoping that the throbbing in my wrist was just a sprain and not a broken bone. The pain is almost unbearable, just dragging myself and what remains of my bike to the side of the road. I'm still trying to shake off my head impacting the pavement. As I tried to assess what had happened, the pedal arm had completely come off and the sprocket had rotated opposite of the normal direction it turned with the axle, which for those of you who don't know bikes is almost impossible without a tool to do so. I grabbed hold of it and tried to rotate it back, but it would not move. I looked down to where my pedals used to be, and it looked as if something had melted right through the arm. I looked around trying to find anything in the road that could have caused the wreck, but all I could find were tiny pieces of broken reflectors and 2 pieces of what used to be the pedals. No one was around, no cars, no people. It just did not seem possible. 3 days in a row, all by myself, with nothing mechanically wrong with the bike, and all 3 days the bike malfunctions. And now here it sits with the sprockets rotated this was the case of the problems that I was having. I did not know for sure, and frankly, I was not willing to test the theory. I was done with this bike, whether it was haunted or just some kind of jinx. I would not ride it again. To this day, I am unsure of the cause of the 3 accidents on the route. I threw the bike out, not really caring if it was a waste of money or not. Better out a few bucks than dead, I figured. I went out and I bought myself a brand new bike. I figured I'd be safe that way. If some sort of entity was attached to a used bike, this was the safest bet. So far, everything is going well, and I hope it stays